and welcome to the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, continuing my 2016 season recaps for each and every team in the NFL. And today we are talking about the Los Angeles Rams, and this was a team that just moved to LA once again. They're back in LA, and what a horrible season they had in LA as the Rams went 4-12. Their rookie quarterback really wasn't impressive. Their head coach, Jeff Fisher, got fired. And now this team is in quite the disarray. But there are some hopes for the future. Not a lot, but some. So we're going to talk about those later. First, let's look at the season and what went wrong. Let's look at the key games first. So I look at week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers. Horrible game. Monday Night Football, your only Monday Night Football game the entire season, your only real primetime game the entire season. I know you had the Seahawks on Thursday night, but really the real primetime games are Sunday and Monday night, right? Those are the real ones. And then maybe a Thanksgiving game. So your real prime time game, and you just get embarrassed, and it was bad, okay, against the 49er team that proved to not be very good, and they ended up sweeping you guys, which was just adding to the disaster that was this Rams season. So that was a horrible loss. But we look at some other key games, and we have a couple wins. All right. In fact, I wanted to put all 3 of these games as wins, but I decided to pick 2 of them, and that is 2 of the next 3 games where you guys went up and beat the Seattle Seahawks, and you guys also went to Arizona and beat the Arizona Cardinals. To me, these were 2 of the most impressive wins from this season. In fact, they were the 2 most impressive wins from this season. Beating Seattle, beating Arizona. Yes, they are divisional opponents, but these are 2 teams that were projected to be in the playoffs before the season. One of them did, one of them didn't. Very impressive victories here. And then even going to Tampa Bay, though, that was an impressive victory, putting up points when you needed to in winning that game and holding on despite the weather conditions. Great win there. But then from there, things got bad as you lost 4 straight games, but not to terrible teams. To the Bills, the Lions, the Giants, the Panthers, not to terrible teams. The Panthers aren't very good, but not to terrible teams. You guys get a win against a terrible team as you beat the New York Jets. Luckily for you, the horrible quarterback known as Bryce Petty was starting this game, and even though he stinks, you definitely have quarterbacks that are definitely better than him, so you're able to win this game. We look at the next conglomerate of games, though. We have a bunch of L's as the LA Rams finish the season on an 8-game losing streak, losing plenty of games, losing in the division for the first time, only finishing 2-4 in the division. Disappointing for them, getting swept by the San Francisco 49ers. Horrible. You can't get swept by the San Francisco 49ers, but then somehow splitting with the Seahawks and the Cardinals, but unable to beat them later on in the season. You fire Jeff Fisher. You bring in Jim Fassel, who really wasn't a good head coach either. He was an interim head coach, but really wasn't very good. And the season ends pretty miserably. You did have some chances to win some games, like against the 49ers. You guys were up early. But, we're talking about getting blown out by the Falcons, getting blown out by the Saints, getting dominated by the Patriots, getting blown out in the Week 17 game against the Arizona Cardinals, where, dear God, Pharaoh Cooper threw an interception in this game. A disastrous end to the 2016 season for the LA Rams. Now, let's look at the individual performances from this season and hand out some awards. Not many, but some. Let's look at the MVP. Let's look at the offensive side of things. And the MVP for the offense would be Kenny Britt. What a season for Kenny Britt. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, and I remember growing up with Kenny Britt and wanting him to become that franchise wide receiver I knew he had the potential and ability to be. But after he left Tennessee, I never thought he would actually reach that potential. But because this guy was so young coming out, the guy was drafted 20 years old. I took him 8 years, but damn it, he finally realized his potential, eclipsing 1,000 receiving yards on this season. And he was spectacular. I mean, he had a number of one-hand catches, one-arm catches, turnaround catches, mainly because there were a lot of inaccurate passes from Jared Goff, but it was impressive nonetheless. And despite the quarterback carousel at quarterback, obviously, he was able to find success, find consistency. Very impressed I was by Kenny Britt, and I'm sure everyone was. He's an upcoming free agent. We'll talk about that later. The rest of the wide receivers, though, Tavon Austin continues to be extremely inconsistent. This is a guy that can get some yards after the catch, but he drops a lot of passes, an inconsistent route runner, never running the correct depths, putting his quarterback at risk of throwing interceptions because they're never on the same page. Needs to be a more consistent and precise route runner, and also just pass catcher. We look at Brian Quick, kind of the same story, not as fast or as athletic as Tavon Austin, and a little better in terms of route running, but still inconsistency there. You look at some other guys deep in this wide receiving core, not very good either. So the wide receivers, they don't really get a passing grade, but Kenny Britt tried his best, and he wins the Offensive MVP award. We look at the offensive line. A pretty terrible offensive line. We knew it before the season, or at least I did. Some Rams fans tried to convince me otherwise, but it proved to be a terrible offensive line. Greg Robinson, a terrible year, and this guy loves to get penalties of the asshole. Over 10 penalties for Greg Robinson, once again allowing over 7 sacks once again. A terrible year for Greg Robinson. We look at the guard positions. Jamon Brown, good in run blocking, bad in pass blocking, in fact egregious in pass blocking. He needs to improve. Tim Barnes, the center. I actually like Tim Barnes. I think he's a good center. We look at the right guard. Roger Saffold, little inconsistent, but I like him as well. But then the right tackle position, Rob Havenstein. After what was a promising rookie season, a terrible year, the Washington Post had him at 9.5 sacks allowed this season. That is awful. And you look at these tackles right now, they are terrible. Now, I do have some hope for Rob Havenstein. He has performed in the past. I cannot say the same for Greg Robinson. He hasn't done anything since Auburn. We look at the tight end position. Lance Kendricks found a way to get 499 receiving yards. I'm not in love with his blocking, but 499 receiving yards for this guy is a good season, so he gets a passing grade from me. Tyler Higbee didn't do much, but I still like the potential there, and the same goes for your other late tight end that you took. I can't remember his name right now. It's a long name. I'll remember it later, but the tight end position right now, to me, it's fine. We look at your quarterback and your running back. So, two quarterbacks, Case Keenum, Jared Goff. Case Keenum, not very good. Jared Goff, same story. So, how can we evaluate Jared Goff after his rookie season? It was definitely a disappointing rookie season, okay? Honestly, guys, it was. After we've seen plenty of quarterbacks come in the NFL, like Andrew Luck, like Russell Wilson, like Cam Newton, like Marcus Mariota, come in this league and have success early. You can do it, and he didn't even come close. And don't tell me those guys had great teams. Andrew Luck had nobody his first year, really. T.Y. Hilton was a rookie. He had Reggie Wayne, but he was old. He really didn't have anybody. You look at Marcus Mariota. He was turning around and handing the ball to Antonio Andrews. His number one wide receiver was Dorial Green-Beckham. So I don't want to hear that from Rams fans. This was a bad year from Jared Goff. And it was a year in which, even when I sat down and watched his best plays, I saw him throwing behind receivers, throwing high to receivers, throwing low, throwing high, throwing left, throwing right. Very inaccurate year. Now, you can convince me of this, and this is fine, that if we can improve his protection, if we can improve the running game, then he will be better, fine. But we have to admit, this is a bad year from Jared Goff. Plenty of interceptions, plenty of poor plays. But he's not a complete train wreck like a Bryce Petty. We look at your running game. Let's look at Todd Gurley. And look, I understand the run blocking for this Rams team was not very good this season. Okay, yes, Greg Robinson stinks. Rob Havenstein, not very good. You look at the left guard again, he's not very good either. Let's move on to the defensive side of things. Let's speed this up a little bit because we're going a little slow. Let's look at Aaron Donald, the defensive tackle. He's the defense MVP. He's fantastic. Another good year from Michael Brockers, encouraged by Dominique Easley. Those are your defensive tackles. Look at the defensive ends. Robert Quinn, can he stay healthy? When he's healthy, he's good. Has not been healthy lately. You got to fix something there. We look at the other defensive end position, William Hayes, very good against the run. And in terms of pass rushing, he'll get you like 5 sacks a year, maybe 6, maybe 7 on a great year. Look at your linebackers. Alec Ogletree continues to be everywhere good. Mark Barron really enjoying his play at linebacker. We look at your other linebackers, there's not many, right? So you guys play Mark Barron and Alec Ogletree this season for over 1,000 snaps. I can believe that number. You gotta sign a strong side linebacker to me and disperse the snaps here. I don't know what the Rams are running defensively. We look at their secondary. Let's start with the cornerbacks. We have Trumaine Johnson, played very well, although at times he did mail it in, but that's when they were down by 30. We look at the other cornerbacks. EJ Gaines, not very good. Troy Hill, not very good. We look at LaMarcus Joyner, has some potential still, and unfortunately, he may be their number 1 cornerback if Trumaine Johnson leaves in free agency. And we look at their safeties, Maurice Alexander, really like him. Now I understand why they let go of Rodney McLeod. And then TJ McDonald, your strong safety, a pretty good strong safety as well when he cares, but sometimes this team did not care at all. So there you go. There goes the 2016 season for the Los Angeles Rams. Let's look at the draft class once more. So I actually kind of like this draft class when they did it. I gave the Jared Goff pick a B, and my problem with this pick was I liked Carson Wentz better. I think that has proven to be true thus far. We look at their other draft picks. Tyler Higbee, I gave him a B+. Didn't do too much before a 4th round pick. I still think this is a good grade for a 4th round pick. Farrell Cooper was disappointing in terms of some drops and some clowning him. I give it a B- before the draft, actually after the draft. Now I think it's about the same, maybe like a C+ actually, but about the same. So I think I pretty much nailed this draft class, but I was a little nice. I gave it a B draft class at the time. Perhaps now it's a B- or a C+. But with potential to be a B again, even an A if Jared Goff could actually develop into a great quarterback and Tyler Higbee becomes a mainstay at tight end. So there goes the 2016 season for the LA Rams. Now let's look forward to the 2017 offseason. Let's start with our cap space. The LA Rams are projected to have $44 million in cap room. Good. They're going to need it because they don't have a 1st round pick this year. They're going to need to spend some money on free agents. But before they do that, they have to re-sign some of their own. The key free agents, Trumaine Johnson, number 1 cornerback. You must re-sign him or franchise him again. Kenny Britt, a great breakout year from him. I'm not sure the contract that he's looking for, but I think he played well enough for you to say, okay, this guy's finally figured it out. Let's re-sign him. We look at Case Keenum. I would let him go. Was never very good, and I want Jared Goff to have a better quarterback to learn from than Case Keenum. Brian Quick, it's up to you. I don't care either way. Personally, I might let him go and just bring in someone better for our football team, but it's up to you. I really don't care. Greg Zuerlein, who has not really played as well as he did when he came into the league, I'd say, but he's still a pretty good kicker for the NFL. And to me, you really don't want to go down the route of looking for a new kicker. That's a very dangerous road. Just ask the Houston Texans. So stick with Zuerlein to me. And then TJ McDonald, your strong safety, if you can re-sign him to a cheap deal for about under $5 million, maybe not $5 million, under $7 million per year, re-sign him. And then Benny Cunnigham, your backup running back, he's a good player, right? So I'd look to re-sign him as well. Now let's look at your team needs They are actually not as much as you would think. Now let's start with this one, left tackle. I understand that we invested the second overall pick in the 2014 NFL Draft in Greg Robinson. We must move on. The guy stinks, penalty prone, and just allows way too many sacks. Not a great run blocker. The guy's been a disaster. No one can fix him. We look at cornerback. This is if you let go of Trumaine Johnson, and it sounds like you might. We'll see. If you guys keep Trumaine Johnson, then it's less of a need, although you guys can still use, to me, a third cornerback. I would just find a little slot cornerback like Leon Hall or Terence Newman or something like that. So I'll leave it up there. We look at wide receiver. If you guys let go of Kenny Britt, you're definitely going to need one. If you guys keep Kenny Britt, I still look to upgrade. I don't like Tavon Austin as your number 2 wide receiver. I think he's a number 3 and not a very good one. So I would look to get a number 2 wide receiver in LA. I really, really would, to help alleviate the pressure off of Jared Goff. We look at outside linebacker. Again, Mark Barron and Alec Ogletree combining for over 2,000 snaps this season. That's too much. Get another linebacker in there, a strong side linebacker, to alleviate the pressure off of them and to disperse this lineup a little bit. I think they have some weird formations that really don't work out. They need to solidify their run defense again. Go get a strong side linebacker. We look at defensive end. I want some youth in there. I want someone that can come in as a rotational guy, and if Robert Quinn gets injured again, can even be a little bit of a starter for us. And then just depth everywhere. I want some quarterback depth. Go sign a veteran free agent. I want some better running back depth, like a nice weapon in the receiving game. I want some more wide receiver depth. I want depth everywhere. The offensive line, I want depth. I want depth everywhere. Let's go get it. So we have 8 draft picks for this team. But really quick before that, let's look at some potential free agents and trade acquisitions. Really just free agents. So let's start with offensive tackles. To me, you need one. You need a left tackle. Andrew Whitworth. He's getting old. He'll only be like a 1 or 2 year deal, but he'd be a nice little, stopgap. We look at Riley Reiff, was a left tackle in the past, could be one again. I would consider it, but unfortunately there are not many great tackles, especially left tackles, in this upcoming free agent period. We look at Menelik Watson of the Oakland Raiders, a guy that played right tackle and could play left. I'd look into that. There's not many tackles, unfortunately. Let's look at cornerbacks. We have A.J. Bouye of the Houston Texans. We have Logan Ryan of the Patriots, Stephon Gilmore of the Bills, Terence Newman of the Vikings. If you want to let go of Trumaine Johnson, you got to get a number 1 cornerback in there. That could be Bouye, that could be Ryan, that could be Gilmore. If you let go, if you actually keep Trumaine Johnson, you guys could sign a Terence Newman, you guys could sign a Leon Hall, or someone to be in that slot position. Wide receivers. If you guys let go of Kenny Britt, bring in an Alshon Jeffery. If you guys keep Kenny Britt, Terrelle Pryor, DeSean Jackson, Pierre Garcon, Willie Snead, all viable options to me. Maybe even Kendall Wright. We look at some defensive ends. Now, I would like a young one, but just in case they want to get an older one, I look at Alex Okafor, Charles Johnson being some options there, but I really wouldn't go there. We look at some depth in other areas. How about Ted Larson, A.Q. Shipley, Chance Warmack, Hugh Thornton, all on the offensive line. Nick Foles to be a quarterback, and some other positions we could look to upgrade as well. Let's look at some potential draft picks with your 8 draft picks. No first round pick and no compensatory pick for the 3rd round, but still plenty of draft picks and decisions that can be made. Let's start with offensive tackle, Garrett Bowles and Roderick Johnson with the 2nd round pick. Let's look at cornerbacks, Desmond King, Sidney Jones, Garyon Conley, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Lewis, all viable in that 2nd round. Wide receivers, whether you keep or let go of Kenny Britt, Juju Smith-Schuster, D.D. Westbrook, Isaiah Ford, all viable options to me, maybe even Cooper Kupp. We look at some linebackers, Raekwon McMillan, Gerard Davis, possible. Let's get the third round now. Zach Banner, Adam Bisnowadi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but I think that could be an option there. Deion Watkins, all available and possible to me. We look at some defenders, cornerback Cameron Sutton, linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin, wide receiver Cooper Kupp, Amara Doba, and Curtis Samuel. So there you go. Those are some potential draft picks, some potential free agent signings. How quickly will it take for the LA Rams to rebuild this franchise? Now, it will, to me, take probably another 2 years for this team to be in playoff contention. 1 year, if they could absolutely do everything right, if they could find a new left tackle to me, or if Greg Robinson for some reason wakes up one day and says, hey, wait a minute, I want to be good, which I doubt. So if they do everything right, then 1 year. But to me, this is a 2-year rebuild, especially with no first round pick. But you guys have the cap space, you could say. You can make that argument, but you guys haven't gone out and get free agents lately. You guys did overpay for Cortland Finnegan and Jared Cook in the past, but Leslie doesn't look like he wants to do that anymore unless they're Tennessee Titans. So, to me, I wouldn't be too optimistic. I would expect definite progression, possibly 6-10 next year, but not much more than that. We shall see what happens as it pertains to the LA Rams, and then obviously find a better head coach that can get something more, or a lot more, hopefully, out of your defense and your offense, which this year were, quite frankly, disasters. All right, so there you go. Those are my thoughts on the LA Rams 2016 season and my preview of their 2017 offseason. What are you guys' thoughts? Comment down below. I want to know. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, to subscribe. And until next time, this has been the MJ Take on Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out.